Good morning from rainy and stormy Irvine, California. This is Shane Starr with Reflections on Religion. Today, I have my church handouts from this morning, copy of the Catechism, and today's featured article from former Yale professor Nicholas Wolterstorff from Yale. Nicholas, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well. So, we started out yesterday with a question about icons and the second commandment. And in short, the question is this: if the second commandment forbids images and veneration of images, isn't kissing or honoring an icon basically idolatry? Now, spoiler alert, I'm going to say no. I'm going to argue against that, and I'm going to do so in a step-by-step linear way. Again, I'm working off of my former professor's paper, and he titled it, "Would you stomp on a picture of your mother? Would you kiss an icon?" And it's so funny, so long ago, I never thought that I would be arguing his point on a paper. In fact, when I was his student, I was a little bit dubious about whether I thought he made, a strong point or not. Life has taught me that his argument is stronger than I originally thought. So, in this paper, he starts out with this fictional story. Maybe it's real, I don't know. But it's a story about a Jesuit priest named Sebastian. And my son's named Sebastian, so no pun intended with the name. But Sebastian is a Jesuit priest, and he's in a community where religious people are being tortured and killed. And the captors know that Sebastian will willingly lay down his own life rather than apostatize or deny the faith. So they come up with this ingenious plan, which is diabolical as well as genius. He says, "No, we're not going to do anything to you, Sebastian. What we're going to do is torture all your followers. They're right here being tortured. We're going to kill them unless you apostatize. Wouldn't your God apostatize?" And they have him take out a wooden image of Christ. I can't think of what they called it, a fumie. That's what they called it in the paper. And just trample on it and desecrate it. And he said, do this and the people will live. And this gives the priest Sebastian great pain and second guessing himself. What should I do? Eventually, hearing the screams of the people being tortured, he gives in, and I'll explain what the consequences are of that from the paper itself. The captors say it's only a formality. What do formalities matter? Just go through the exterior form of trampling. But it wasn't just a formality. By trampling the graven image, Sebastian apostatized. He knew what he did. Everyone there knew what he did. He too lived the remainder of his life as a broken person. So, I think the first premise in my argument would be that images aren't just objects. Just like words are more than the paper and ink they're written on, they symbolize something. And to take a page out of Wolterstorff's paper from his title, would you stomp on a picture of your own mother? At least most of us wouldn't. Why is this? Because images carry a meaning greater than their apparent value. It's not just material, they point to something more. Okay, so that's my first premise. My next premise, which immediately follows from this one, is that our actions towards images in general are directed beyond the images themselves. Now, we're not even talking about religious icons at this point. We're talking about just everyday pictures of your family, the anything that you care about or respect, or even anything you give your attention to. This can mean bad things. Let your imagination run wild with that. But this can be bad things as well as good things. What we are directing our attention towards isn't the representation, but what the material thing represents. Okay? Premise 3. This is normal behavior. This is everyday human behavior. And this is an important point, and I'll get to that in a minute. But it's not just about photos. We look at memorials, flags, grave sites, even Bibles. We see these things and they mean something to us. Artifacts, keepsakes from your past. These things, what I'm trying to get across is we already, in our everyday lives, treat images and the symbols that they represent, they are connected to something real, something more important. And if this in and of itself is idolatry, then 99.9% of us are guilty of idolatry on a daily basis. I don't think that's what God's after when he gives us the second commandment. Okay? So that's premise 3. That seeing the value in images as representing something beyond themselves is normal behavior. It's not inherently religious in nature. Okay, and then premise 4, directly from this one, icons work the same way. All right, let me take a page out of Walter Storff's conclusion to jump ahead. Actually, I'm going to paraphrase here. His essay really reframes how we understand images. They're not magical objects, and they're not empty representations either. Instead, they're well-meaning artifacts that are embedded in human relationships and practices. And his question, would you stomp on a picture of your mother? It reveals that images mediate real-life connections between people. And I think once we recognize this, the practice of kissing an icon becomes, even if you don't agree with it, it's at least intelligible rather than just some superstitious practice. I would say that I think I've said enough on that. So that's Walter Storff's conclusion, and this leads us to I want to draw one more thing from the Catechism, what it says about icons on the same point. This is from paragraph 1161. If you have this copy of the Catechism, it's on page 328. All the signs in liturgical celebrations are related to Christ, as are sacred images of the Holy Mother of God and of the saints as well. They truly signify Christ who is glorified in them. They make manifest the cloud of witnesses who continue to participate in the salvation of the world, and to whom we are united above all in sacramental celebration. So this is a very, very important point, because there's a lot of people against icons who would grant me my first 3 premises. And they would say, yeah, it points to something more. Your icons point to saints. Saints are not God. Therefore, it's idolatry. And here's Walter Storff doesn't bring this up, and the Catechism, at least in that section, doesn't address it, but this is my own unique contribution. Not unique, I'm sure there's others who've made it, but independently, my own contribution to the body of knowledge here is that when someone kisses an icon, not only are they not loving the wood and paint or the image, but they're expressing honor towards saints, which in and of themselves, and the Catechism did bring that up, the saints themselves represent God. They are a part of God's kingdom in heaven. There are no such thing as saints without God. There's no such thing as a photo of Christ without the Christ it represents. Going back to our original videos in this series, and I haven't done one on the Holy Spirit yet, but what is the Trinity? It's a communion. It's a communion of persons. It's one God, but it's three persons bound together by love. The kingdom of heaven is not a single person or a single relationship. It is a community. Therefore, an icon is a means to connect with that community. It is not an object of worship. Okay, and that's the core claim of my argument right there. Is first, images aren't just objects. Our actions towards these images are directed somewhere beyond them. This is normal behavior. Icons work the same way. And my premise 5, which I've already said, is the real issue is misplaced worship. People think you're worshiping the individual thing or the individual saint, and none of that has meaning without the ultimate pinnacle of our worship, which is God, which is the Trinity, which is inclusive of God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus Christ. So with that, I think my conclusion is that, going back to the second commandment, well, isn't it idolatry? Aren't images flying right in the face of that? The thing is, images are always involved with everything we do, whether it's reading, whether it's seeing, and many of these images are symbols for something greater. And the question that we need to ask ourselves when we're thinking of idolatry is, where is the object or honor of our worship actually going? I don't think anyone would argue that their object of worship is the art itself. I mean, there are some great masterpieces of art, don't get me wrong, but when we're talking about religious worship, we're talking about the saint or God behind the image, and whether it's one or the other, it all points to the same reality, which is God. So I think I'll conclude with saying, if our honor passes through the image to the person or entity being honored, it's not idolatry. It's a relationship. That's all we have for this week. Now I have to get to work, and I have a little walk in the rain. It's funny, last little thing, I'm in a class with the McGrath Institute in Notre Dame right now where I got my certificate in Catholic theology, and I'm reading about the patristics right now, the early church fathers, and everything they went through to unify what they argued and how they lived. And that, in short, often meant martyrdom. So if you really believe, you allow yourself to be martyred. Not only did they allow it, they welcomed it. And here I am, out in my car because I don't want to do my video on work grounds. It's, what a contrast. But it is the contemporary world we live in, isn't it? Anyway, till next week, God bless, and we will see you next time.